Welcome to Sister Sessions, a podcast where two sisters on very different journeys explore what it means to live spiritually in today's world. My sister, Jenny Fairbank, is the co-founder and spiritual director of Wisdom Pathways, a yoga and meditation teacher, and a somatic healer devoted to guiding others toward inner peace. And I'm Susie Gustin, a mom of three, producer and owner of Red City Live Entertainment, embracing life's joys while searching for deeper meaning. Together, we have honest, relatable conversations about finding balance, purpose, and connection in everyday life. So, settle in. You're exactly where you need to be. Welcome to Sister Sessions. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sister Sessions. Welcome, Jenny Fairbank.
Hello, Sister Susie. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Good. I'm glad to hear.
Did you ask why I was wearing green?
I actually just thought about it as I looked at you. I thought, okay, why are you wearing green?
Well, a gal loves a good theme, and it is St. Patrick's weekend coming up, right?
I'm actually wearing green too.
I noticed, yeah.
Which I don't really ever do. It's rare.
Yeah, me neither. I will say I did buy this for last year. So I've kind of had this in my wardrobe, ready to go. But first, before I get into anything, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm very relaxed and calm, and it's a rainy morning, and that's nice. We've had beautiful weather, and now it's going to be raining for a few days. And, I have a girlfriend here staying to come into the healing sanctuary to do some healing and rest. So
I love that. How's that going for her?
Oh, great. She's really, I think, enjoying the whole thing. And we've been playing outside a lot when we can and, just relaxing.
I love it.
Yeah.
How about all these celebrity podcasts just popping up everywhere?
Is that what's happening? I don't keep happening. Tell me what's going on.
We got in front of it, I will say. But we are like the mom and pop of podcasts here.
You think other people will recognize that?
I'm telling you, we are growing our viewers, so I'm excited. Shout out to all of our new listeners.
Woohoo! Thank you for listening.
Thank you. That's what I say. We can only say thank you for listening and, share us with your friends.
Yes.
Because we're having a good time. And we'd love to reach out to more, but it's exciting to see the numbers growing of people that are tuning in. So much fun, but hilarious. I'm like cracking up at seeing all these new podcasts coming up. And I'm like, wait a minute, someone's spying. They're copying everything I'm doing. Is that what it is?
Well, part of it is in the collective thought energy patterns. We receive thoughts. They're not just created in our brain. Thoughts are universally rooted, not individual. So, we pick up on things and then it's like everybody's thinking about the same thing because it's in the collective, and some people up on them and some people don't. So, yeah, it's not surprising. That's fun. I'm glad. More podcasts. I love it.
I know. Let's support the mom and pop podcast of Sister Sessions.
We sure are mom and pops.
Yeah, it's so fun. I was like, how can we talk about St. Patrick's Day and like have fun with it, right? So I did a little research and tried to figure out, like, I don't know, who is St. Patrick? Like, why are we drinking beer and also talking about a saint in the same, like, where's the connection?
Well, or disconnection, really, because St. Patrick was a Christian missionary. He was captured and put in prison. I don't know why, but in Ireland I don't know, it was like 30 or something, very, very long time ago. And he was in prison for 6 years. And that's where he found his faith. And that happens often, when we get kind of in our worst space in the world, in our life, when we kind of hit, as we say, rock bottom. Then that's sometimes when we turn to a higher power, something bigger than us, because we kind of feel like we have nowhere else to go. So then we find sometimes our faith. And so sounds like that's what happened with this gentleman. And he claims to have had a premonition, being kind of shown how to escape and to leave, that got out of the prison. And then he went back to Ireland. I guess he probably left after he got escaped. I don't know the whole story. But then he went back to Ireland to preach Christianity. And he was a Christian missionary for the rest of his life. And he used the 3-leaf shamrock to describe and to explain the Trinity, the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Yeah. So, there's a lot of deep, beautiful meaning around all this. But, as with everything, sometimes it turns into something.
Well, this weekend we're going to see some college girls with shamrock bikinis on. So it has changed quite a bit. I mean, let's just be real. Things have gotten a little different.
To say the least, how that happens,
But I did read, so I'm going to read this from my phone here. I did read, there is a legend of him driving out snakes. And it says the legend of St. Patrick driving the snakes out of Ireland is one of the most famous stories about him. According to this tale, St. Patrick stood on a hill, often said to be Craw Patrick. It's Croagh. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. Craw Patrick. And used his staff to banish all the snakes from Ireland, driving them into the sea. However, there is a big catch, which you'll love. There were never snakes in Ireland to begin with. The island's cold climate and geographic isolation meant snakes weren't native there. So what does this story really mean? Most historians and scholars believe the snakes in the legend actually represent paganism and Druidic traditions. St. Patrick, a Christian missionary, was working to convert Ireland to Christianity in the 5th century, just as you explained. The snakes likely symbolize the old belief systems and spiritual practices that St. Patrick sought to drive out as Christianity spread. And you know what it made me think of? Where is he now? We need him to drive out to bring in, you know what I mean? Like, where are you now? So yeah, you were right. And then there's this that's his, I guess, big legend was driving out the snakes, which there were no snakes. It's
a metaphor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say where are you now, what do you see he could do? Like if he could, what would you think that would be the best way for him to show up if he could?
I would like him to show up to world leaders and fix them.
Fix them.
Fix this. This is a mess. Yes. Drive out the snakes. That's all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well,
not, I think men are wonderful. I love men, like in general, like I'm not male bashing here by any means whatsoever. This was just a very funny statement that, what is her name? Amy Schumer, the comedian, she had just said on, I think she was maybe on a podcast. She was. I can't remember which one, but she was on a podcast and she made this joke about how are men leading the world, because she was like, in everyday life, like for example, you don't see men on the PTA at school. She's like, could you imagine if you just did nothing? If you have little kids and you did nothing for your child's birthday, a man was in charge for putting together a child's birthday. Like, they can't even do that, but running the world. Like, it was just funny the way she placed it all. But yeah, I would say St. Patrick would do well right now with our world leaders.
Perhaps. I don't know. Right now it's all about trusting that there's something greater happening here and we don't have to be in worry or concern or fear about it. That's the problem when we get into that place, then we're dropping into a heavy energy and that just doesn't help anything or anyone. We got to really focus on how we can create our best life and how we can, in the collective, express love and peace. And I know there's not peace in the world. There might not ever be peace in the world while we're alive.
Right.
And we can't expect that. We have to
I couldn't even imagine that happening.
Peace in the world?
In our life.
Yeah. I mean, of course, anything is possible. However, I wouldn't count on that. What we need to have is peace within ourselves. That's the only thing we can do, really. When we have peace within ourselves, then that naturally ripples out because the energy is shared. So if we feel peaceful within us, we're doing our part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that's not easy to do, obviously, but what are we paying attention to is very vital. What are we consuming?
Yeah.
Because if you're watching a lot of news and you're wrapped up in that energy is very heavy and it's filled with fear. We all know this, yet sometimes we feel so compelled we can't hold back. We can't stop ourselves from knowing what's happening every minute. That is draining. I
Yeah.
mean, some people I know are completely staying away from the news and they're feeling really pretty good. And then others, when they tap in and they jump into it and they get caught up in it, then they start feeling bad and you can really feel the difference. And then so you have to really notice your energy, when you watch something because it's all being programmed and dumped into your subconscious. So you really want to have control over and and not even control over, but also being very careful on what you're putting into your mind
Yeah.
and consuming. Yeah, because it affects us, of course. We can't help it. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
going to learn a little bit about this St.
Okay.
Patrick through
Okay.
fun, of course. We're going to do some true or false around him, and then some myth or legend around like the drinking side of the holiday and why this is that and that is that. So you're going to answer these questions.
Okay.
All right. True or false? St. Patrick was actually Irish.
False.
Correct. He was born in Britain and brought to Ireland as a slave. Well, you had your facts coming into that. Like, okay. True or false? The original color associated with St. Patrick's Day was blue, not green.
False.
True. Early depictions of St. Patrick show him in blue, and it was later changed to green because of Ireland's nickname, the Emerald Isle.
Oh, okay. Cool. Didn't know.
Yeah. True or false? There are 4 leaves on a traditional shamrock.
Ooh, I want to say true.
Well, no. Think about it. You just told us the myth of the shamrock.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
A shamrock has 3 leaves. A 4-leaf clover is rare and considered lucky.
Yes.
All right, next. St. Patrick's Day used to be a dry holiday in Ireland with pubs closed for the day.
Yes. True.
True. Until the 70s, Irish law required pubs to close on March 17th as a solemn religious observance.
Yes.
How that has changed.
Yeah.
Well, here. We'll get into that. True or false? Leprechauns were originally thought to be shoemakers in Irish folklore.
Ooh, that's cute. I'm going to say true.
Yeah, and it is cute. Leprechauns were said to be mischievous little cobblers who stored their gold in hidden pots. Well, shits. True or false? The Chicago River has been dyed green for St. Patrick's Day every year since the 1800s. I would have said true also, but it's false because the tradition started in 1962. So it's like partly true. True or false, there are no actual snakes in Ireland today. Correct. Ireland's climate and isolation have kept it snake-free, making St. Patrick's snake banishing legend more symbolic than literal. Okay, true or false, if you catch a leprechaun, he must grant you 3 wishes before escaping.
False.
Correct. According to folklore, if you take your eyes off of him for even a second, he disappears and you get nothing. They are naughty little things.
That's so funny.
It is funny. Now I want a little leprechaun in my house just to play around. True or false? Corned beef and cabbage is a traditional Irish dish.
True.
False. It's actually an Irish American creation. In Ireland, people traditionally ate bacon and cabbage. I mean, it's super close.
Yeah.
And last, true or false? Kissing the Blarney Stone is supposed to give you good luck.
True.
False. No. It's actually supposed to give you the gift of eloquence, aka the ability to sweet talk your way out of anything.
Ooh, that's interesting.
And what is the Blarney?
Kissing
the Blarney Stone, just a type of rock or stone. Huh. All right. I'm going to move on to the myth or legend. And this is more involved around what the drinking has to do with the holiday. Because I was very curious about this. Like, why so much beer drinking?
Well, I mean, because this country, especially, and I mean, a lot of the world, all holidays kind of have been moved into a celebration where there's always alcohol involved.
Even birth and death.
Everything,
Yeah.
everything. Like, oh, let's celebrate and drink. Let's drink. There's always like a reason. You always want to find a reason. People want to.
Yeah, I heard a few different scientists, doctors who were talking about drinking being bad for your health, and which there's no denying that, but also adding in that I am not condoning anything. Everyone make your own choices. These specific different doctors were saying that they also, though, believe in how alcohol has been, I mean, since mankind growing grapes and fermenting and all of that, and way back in everything, they used it as a celebration. And they're saying that there's also something said healthy for the mind and the soul of coming together and gathering for celebration. And they think that that joy that brings you kind of cancels out. And again, this isn't like daily drinking we're talking about for like your birthday or your baby was born, those type of things. And how, yeah.
And how, what? It cancels out what? The negative effects of alcohol or something? What?
It doesn't cancel it out, but the actual, because your mind is very strong, right? And joy literally coming through you and your energy is very healthy. And so they're saying in that type of a moderation and for the reason of celebration of life reasons that they don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well,
Again,
anything, it's always about
it's not because it's Friday. I'm not saying that.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Truth or myth? This is the drinking edition. People in Ireland have always celebrated St. Patrick's Day by drinking in pubs.
False. Myth.
Correct. Until the 70s, Irish law required pubs to close on St. Patrick's Day to keep the holiday religious. The only places that could sell alcohol were hotels for tourists. So again, it's the Americans coming in. They're like, we want our beer.
But how interesting that it was this beautiful holiday that was religious, that was honoring this saint who spread Christianity to Ireland, and now it's a big drinking fest and party. I mean, just the evolution of our culture, of our world, is so fascinating to observe.
I think this is the United States, though, solely, that did this. That's what I think.
Is that your opinion?
They keep referring to in America. Let's just keep going here. And we'll kind of talk about that, what we think. The tradition of drinking on St. Patrick's Day started because Lent restrictions were lifted for one day.
Can you repeat that slower, please?
Yes, the tradition of drinking on St. Patrick's Day started because Lent restrictions were lifted for one day.
That makes sense.
Since it was a feast day, people were allowed to eat, drink, and celebrate, even if they had given something up for Lent.
Yes. So have you given something up for Lent? Do you practice that, Suze?
No.
You didn't get ashes, I know. Mommy did.
No ashes. No. I give up. I know.
Well, I know this already, but it's interesting. We grew up Catholic and doing all these things and all these rituals and all these, traditions, and how all three of us have completely turned away from all of it. Like, not 1 ounce of Catholicism do we practice, really. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. But hey, I mean, if you want to use Lent to give up a bad habit for 40 days, go for it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with giving up a bad habit, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, myth or legend? Green beer is an Irish tradition.
Probably a myth.
Correct. Green beer started in America.
America.
In the early 1900s, when bars began dyeing beer green as a gimmick. It's not a thing in Ireland. All right, Guinness sales double on St. Patrick's Day.
Sure.
On March 17th, people around the world drink over 13 million pints of Guinness, twice the usual amount.
Sure.
All right, myth or legend? The drowning the Shamrock tradition means putting a shamrock in your beer for good luck.
No.
It is truth. This old Irish tradition involved dropping a shamrock into your drink, toasting, then tossing the shamrock over your shoulder. It was a way to bring luck into the new season.
It's so funny how we do these things. They create these legit little traditions.
Yeah. Myth or legend, St. Patrick himself enjoyed a good pint of beer.
I don't think so.
Correct. There's no record of St. Patrick drinking alcohol, and in his time, the 5th century, beer was very different, more like a fermented porridge.
Probably not taste so yummy.
Okay, well, we already know that the myth of the Chicago River says Chicago dyes its river green for St. Patrick's Day using shamrock extract. That is a myth.
Right.
No, it's a myth.
Right.
The Chicago River is dyed green using eco-friendly vegetable dye, but the idea of shamrock extract makes it sound way more magical. All right. Whiskey is a more traditional Irish drink than beer.
Probably.
Yep.
Yep.
The word whiskey comes from the Irish term, I will butcher this, bitha, but it's U-I-S-C-E, and then bitha, B-E-A-T-H-A, meaning water of life. Historically, Irish people drank whiskey or stout, while the beer drinking culture grew later. So whiskey actually means water of life. I would say that maybe Reed would agree with that.
Reed loves whiskey.
Wearing green on St. Patrick's Day keeps you from getting pinched.
Oh, that makes, maybe. I could see that.
Well, the interesting thing is that Zane must have learned in school because he keeps telling me that it's coming and we can't get pinched, so we have to wear something green. But it's actually a myth. This is actually an American tradition, not Irish. It started with the idea that leprechauns couldn't see people wearing green, so they wouldn't pinch anyone not wearing it. So they would pinch anyone not wearing it. So if you wear green, you don't get pinched by a leprechaun.
Because they can't see you if you wear green. So they would pinch anybody, but if they can't see you, they can't pinch you.
Yeah. They are so funny. Okay, so I'm getting right now that I love leprechauns more than I ever thought. All right, last, myth or legend. There's a St. Patrick's Day parade at the bottom of the ocean. It's true. The Florida Keys hold an underwater St. Patrick's Day parade for scuba divers every year.
Wow.
That would be something to see.
Wow. Yeah. I guess they record it, or how do they film it and people can watch it?
Well, I mean, now you can film underwater, yeah.
Right. So interesting.
That is so interesting.
How one thing evolves into so many different things, right? Just like Christianity in general. How Christianity started and then how it has evolved and changed, and different traditions and all kinds of things that weren't originally had anything to do with Christianity in so many ways. I mean, it's just a fascinating expression of how evolution happens and how we add and take away however we feel called to, just because.
Yeah, and it takes, one small group of people that are on like the head of whatever to make that decision that will then become history, which is also wild.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you do on St. Patrick's Day?
Well, our brother traditionally has a St. Patrick's Day party at his house that starts in the morning. And he has, all the fun food and
like what?
People, the green bagels and the quiche and champagne and Guinness and, just normal breakfast food. He gathers all of his friends whom Reed and I never get to see. It's a once in a year that we see these friends of his, and it's nice to see them. They're really nice people, and for Reed and I, it's like how was your year every year? Because it's kind of like a funny thing, like, we only see each other on this one day, which is, it's fun. So we get to kind of have a reunion with Danny's friends.
Yeah. And then don't you go out to the parade?
No, we don't go to the parade. I went to the parade downtown one year. We took Duke and Layla because it is advertised as family friendly. And I was like, yep, no, this is ridiculous because, there are people that are by 10 a.m. wasted. And it's loose cannons everywhere. Like, good, I'm happy you're having a good time, but it's not. I don't think that that's family friendly just because there's a bunch of, I will call it loose cannons, getting that drunk in the morning, you don't know what people are going to do. So I never took them back to that situation. No, we just go around to a couple of their favorite places locally in their neighborhood, and then we gather back at his house. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I thought you went out though. You didn't stay at his house. You go out and
For the
go to
afternoon. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It is a good time. I enjoy it. What are
And
you
then
gonna do?
what do I do? You know me. I will probably say, look at my calendar and say, "Oh, it's St. Patrick's Day," and then do work.
Do you have memory of celebrating it though? Like in your younger days, do you have memories of
You know, I didn't do anything too crazy ever on St. Patrick's Day. I do recall when we lived in Pittsburgh for the years we did that we definitely did go down there once and to the parade, like the whole celebration. And I remember how jam packed it was, like a sardine. And it was too much. It was overwhelming, and even back then for me, which back then, 20 years ago or whatever, I would have had some drinks and, been more in that space, but I couldn't even do that then. And now I don't really like big crowds anymore,
no?
just, in general. And I just don't, the stimulation is overwhelming sometimes, like all the noise and the the energy's too intense for me.
Yeah, I
I
didn't celebrate it till I moved to Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I didn't celebrate it in Los Angeles. I don't
it's so big
recall.
in Pittsburgh.
It's really big. Pittsburgh, Chicago. I think I would say Boston.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. New York, because there is a very large Irish population in those areas.
Hmm.
Obviously, all over the country, but that they're very highly populated there. So it's just a natural. It's going to be a bigger celebration.
Hmm.
When we were growing up, remember, Mama, our grandmother would always wear. She was Irish. She'd wear the green and she'd be dancing, and
Huh?
she'd have her own little celebration.
Yeah, in our own little space.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm not, I don't, I'm not a partier anymore. I don't drink alcohol and I don't, it's just, I honestly really love I would love to honor the actual reality of it and the depths of, this beautiful soul who felt so inspired to share what he, felt so called to share, which was his faith and Christianity. And Christianity is really such a beautiful religion if it's in its purest sense. The teachings of Jesus are just beyond. And I think a lot of those teachings have been kind of tainted and misinterpreted. But Jesus is all about love, loving everyone and loving yourself and knowing that God is love and that the kingdom of God is within you. You are a part of that reality.
Yeah.
And I just love that. That's beautiful. So for me, I'd rather, honor that and be quiet and introspective. And I'm just such a introspective person now. Just very different than I used to be. And it's interesting to even think like how I would have wanted to go to a party maybe 20 years ago,
Hmm.
And now I'm like, yeah, I'll just meditate for a little while and I don't know. It's just different. And I don't think it's just my age either. I don't think it's like, oh,
No, no,
holy
no, no, no. I mean, we're basically the same age, and I'm looking forward to having, a good time on celebrating that. No, that is just, you have just grown into this very calm, very connected, very at peace soul. And not to say that I'm seeking something because I'm going to a party, but you're not seeking anything. You know what I mean? Like you're always feeling, that makes sense. Am I
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I do agree with you. I mean, I've just changed a whole lot. And I know it's definitely not my age because people of all ages party and do all their things or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not, I think that's great, no judgment at all. Like,
No,
I
you're
love
so
to
not
go.
judgmental. And when you come to Pittsburgh, you hang out with us and you have a great time and you laugh and just because you don't have a glass of wine in your hand, you're having just as much fun as everyone else. Absolutely not. You're just not creating those moments yourself
Yeah.
in your daily life.
Yeah, and I really do feel like I can kind of step into almost any space and, just be there and not, I can blend and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
you're a
enjoy
chameleon.
and have
You don't
fun.
judge. Just
No.
because you don't do it, you do not judge. No.
No, no. I mean, I want everybody to do what they feel called to do, and I love hearing the stories. I love when you tell me like, "Okay, tell me what happened. How was it? What did you do?" It's fun to hear. But I'll tell you, I there's no way. Like as much as I love you and Danny and the family, obviously so very much. I just can't even imagine being there all the time and living.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
100%.
But
Yeah.
tapping in and hanging out is great.
And that's so awesome that you found that and you settled into who you are and what really brings you joy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important for everyone to find their joy and their passions in life and to serve in the highest way they can, whatever that looks like. I mean,
Mhm.
I just am so grateful to see you and so I think it's such a blessing to see you be the person you are and dive and have just totally dove into being a mom and being so amazing at it and just really loving your life to the fullest and doing all the great things that you do. I'm just it's so beautiful to watch such a different life, right, than
Yeah.
me. To really see that and to because I feel like I'm such a part of it because we talk all the time and I know what's happening and I know how your days are and it's really cool to witness it and also to know that that definitely wasn't my path and isn't and how grateful I am that I found mine
Mhm.
and then we get such a different experience.
Yeah.
I like it.
You're like the next Oprah.
You're the next Oprah.
No, you. You're
Me?
like the next Oprah. Oh my God, yeah. You're like the
What
next
does
Oprah.
that even mean? What is
It's like someone that just, well, she someone that touches so many people and like everyone wants to touch. And it's really cool.
you you see that
Which is
I
why that's why I wanted to start this podcast because I'm like, more people, well, not only because it's super fun and I absolutely love doing it, but also because I told you a million times, more people have to hear about you. I have sent messages to famous people about you
what?
before, way before this podcast even was a thought in my head. I have. And I just let it sit and I'm like, I put it out there. Who knows?
Oh my goodness.
Hmm.
So I don't want to be famous.
I'm not saying about fame. This has nothing. I'm talking about your touch that you could have with people, what you could bring. Oprah brings a lot to the table.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
she's helped so many people. And that's what I'm talking about. And I think Oprah needs you.
Ooh.
I said it.
I would absolutely love to sit down and go deep in there. Yeah. I mean, because she's such a deep reader and consumer of all of this information. And, I don't know her obviously well at all. And personally, none of us do, but it just feels like I would like to know how she actually lives her life day to day. Like, what does she do every day? What's her mental state? What
She
is her emotion?
meditates.
Of course she does. I mean, you can't be so enthralled in that life of discussing spirituality and reading about it and talking to these amazing people throughout years about it and not dive into that. It would seem kind of odd, I think, if she didn't.
Well, you have a similar mission. I mean, I feel like it's almost the same exact mission because she says all the time, my mission is to help people, and I'm not quoting her, but it's in other words, help people find the best in themselves, like bring out your truth and all of your light and again, she definitely has a much better way of saying it, but that is why she believes she's here. And you have the same
Kind
similar.
of similar, very similar. Mine, I would say, my mission really is to empower people to live, to empower people to awaken to their true self and transform their lives. So I use the acronym.
I would say that she would be like, me too, Jenny. I
Yeah,
swear, because I'm just not wording it correctly.
sure. Yeah. But I do it very differently than she does it.
Oh, yeah.
She talks to everybody and does all the, brings people together and all of that. I'm kind of doing it one person at a time in
Yes.
my client sessions, and with Wisdom Pathways, Stephen and I together working with people to transform their lives and working through their transitional periods and their grieving periods or their needing to heal periods or whatever's going on with them. We show up where they are, we meet them where they are and dive in to help them to see the light within them and to know that all that's happening for them is an opportunity for them to grow and learn and understand themselves on a deeper level. And so I use the acronym EAT. It's always helped me to remember: empower, awaken, transform, EAT, to like help me remember my mission in a way, because there's so many thoughts that I have around all this, and like the passion I have to help people know the truth it sometimes overwhelms me. Like all I care about is consciousness, expanding consciousness, and of course doing my part in that by taking care of my consciousness and expanding mine first and foremost, and then showing the way that is the truth and the light that has been taught for eons.
Yeah.
What Jesus taught, we're talking about Jesus's mission and his teachings are the truth, right? Of that God is the reality, and that the light of that source is within us, and that we are very powerful beings, and that this isn't our true nature, isn't this human form.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this temporary experience we're having. And so literally lighten up your energy field by tapping into that inner source.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, through that practice of meditation and introspection and really paying attention to yourself and knowing that you can have the best life,
Mm-hmm.
based on the way you see it. And I'm not saying the best life is if it's going to be perfect and it's always going to be great, because that's not how it is. We come up to obstacles and we come into challenges often,
Mm-hmm.
but they're coming for us as opportunities to really grow and to see, okay, what do I need to learn here? What am I here? Why is this happening for me? In the curiosity state, not in the revolt of I don't like this and why isn't it different?
Yeah.
So anyway, the whole empower, awaken, transform is so important to me, and I've held on to that. That's been my mission for the past 15 years, really, like where I dove into it. When we moved to Austin, that was like a huge transformation for me, because I was stepping more into my authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
because living in certain places just didn't, I don't know, I wasn't ready for stepping into the power as much as until I moved, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And like really being more who I know I am versus kind of being told who I am
Mm-hmm.
based
Yeah.
on what people have experienced.
This leads me down a certain path just based on what you said. I want to tap into this because I feel, okay, so you were talking about how moving helped you. What were the words you used?
To just step into my power more and my
Okay.
authentic self and what I
For
really
sure.
wanted to do.
For sure. And I just want to say, like, I know I hear a lot of people say they're unhappy. All right. And they're like, I'm going to move because if I move, I'm going to be happy. I just need to move. If I move out of this city, I'll find happiness. And that fails so much because it's kind of like, if I get married, I'll be happy. If I have a baby, I'll be happy. And I just want to make it clear that that's not what Jenny's talking about. Jenny was very happy where she was, but she knew that the environment she wanted to create was moving from this environment to other. It was about creating a new environment. And I will also say that when I moved from Los Angeles to Pittsburgh, I could have had the opposite experience because I could have resisted it. I moved just to kind of get people on the right path of what we're talking about. Went through a bad divorce, and I moved right after it was finalized. And I really didn't want to move. I have my best friends in Los Angeles. I do love California. However, I knew that moving and changing my environment was going to be healthier at that time in space. And so I could have been the opposite and resisted and got depressed and said, this sucks. I didn't want to move. But instead I said, I am going to find a new life and a new happiness here, not forever, for as long as I choose. But it was important for me to switch environments at the time and take with me positivity and love. So where it could have been the opposite. So I don't want people to think that environment will make you happier if you're not happy. You have to have a good purpose for why that environment will serve you better, not just, oh, there's a beach there. If I go there because they have a beach, I'll be happier. No. Is it making sense? Do you want to elaborate on what you think?
100%, 100%. And because happiness does not come from without, it comes from within. The environment doesn't make anybody happy. Environment is powerful, and it can be stronger at times than our willpower. So, we can easily get caught into energies we don't want to be in, or, environments that aren't conducive for our growth. We really need to look at that, because surroundings do matter. And yeah, I definitely this was the challenge there. Being there was, we were happy. Dave and I were very happy. We had a great friend group. We had great work. We had family. I mean, we had, beautiful places to live. We lived in a great space. And so this is where people were like, why would you move? Why?
Well, this mimics your move from just now, from
Yes.
Austin or Texas to California. So I think that, you know when to grow, which is really powerful, because every time you've done that, your growth has been like expanded so much, and I will post it on Sister Sessions Instagram. I saved it, but it's ironically what you just said about going in, and you love Alice in Wonderland, and it is a picture of Alice, and it says, in order to go out, you must go in.
Yes.
In order to go out, you must go in. Let me just check it really quick, but you can talk while I'm looking up. I'll be 2 seconds.
I do love Alice in Wonderland, and I don't think, go ahead.
You rewrite the matrix. This literally is like your quote, and it's Alice. You rewrite the matrix by doing your inner work. The way out is in.
Bingo.
So I'll post that on Sister Sessions. It's really cute.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think we talked about this here, about the Alice in Wonderland party. It's part of, honestly, and I think we should have a discussion soon about manifestation. And, it's part of one of the desires I've had in life. It's when I think very soon after, within the first couple years we lived in Austin, I had this image of having this incredible long table filled with treats and sweets and teas all over the place, and a big celebration, everyone dressed up as Alice in Wonderland characters and in the forest, and just having a celebration for the fun of it. And I had this vision, and I was like, I want to do that one day. I want to have an Alice in Wonderland party in a forest with this long table, and just joy and light and fun and celebratory. And, I thought it, had this vision, let it go, whatever, moving on and all the things. And then in Wimberley, we lived on this retreat. We started this retreat business. We helped curate this beautiful property that was not ours. The owner, amazing soul, who put in all his resources and energy and time to create this thing with us. And at the end, towards the end of it, which is just, very not that long ago, what, a year, not even a year ago? Actually, a year ago now.
No,
Is
I think
that
it was
true?
in April.
Right, but soon is going to be a
soon.
year ago
Yeah.
almost that we actually did have it, because
Oh, you guys, it was amazing. I'll post some pictures on Sister Sessions Instagram so you can all see it, and I'll reference that it came from this episode. Yeah, it was amazing.
it was a dream come true, and that, we had a caterer, and we did, the planning that I put into this, it was like I was planning a wedding.
Yeah.
Months of figuring out how we wanted to do it, the different decorations, and inviting everybody. And Susie came, and her husband from Pittsburgh, and a couple other people from out of town. And oh my gosh, it was so magical, and everyone dressed up, and everybody had a great time. We had games, and it was pure magic. And I looked at that, sitting back and looking at that, like, wow, you can dream, whatever you can dream can come true.
You know what I loved about it the most? Well, I loved everything about it. Well, one of the things I loved about it the most was that you had this major event for nothing. Like, because life is worth living. That's why you had this event. And that was my favorite part of the whole thing. We weren't there to celebrate, a birthday, any milestone, no baby. It was about everyone coming together because life is worth living. And that was my favorite part about it. Like, being in an event that big, just because, not because it's St. Patrick's Day, nothing. Just because life is worth living, and gathering your friends, and someone like you thinking that your friends were that worthy of that time in space, and putting together that much effort, it made you feel so good. It was just beautiful. It was really, every single person there was so lovely and happy. It was cool.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for that whole experience. And the original Alice in Wonderland, the party, that whole tea party was for the unbirthday. This is your unbirthday. This is, if it's not your birthday today, then it's your unbirthday. Like, it was like just to celebrate, right? And that's what it was. And some people thought, oh, it's your birthday. I'm like, no, it's actually not. This has nothing to do with anything but pure joy. And I want to have a tea party in the forest.
So
because
fun.
we can.
I love it. And it can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. That's like yes, you can. Just say it.
Yes.
Not everything. Yes, you can.
It's really about you have to put the willpower, and you have to put the energy into it, right? That was a love. It was so fun getting decorations. It was so fun planning it out. It was so fun to see, okay, what do we need to do to get this area, the enchanted forest, just so, and putting up the lights. And there was a lot of energy and effort, and resources to put into it. And it was worth every moment. It wasn't like, oh, wow, that was a lot of work for, blah, blah, blah. No, I would do it all over again. And maybe, we actually talked about, maybe we should do this every year, a different theme and a different kind of character thing. It might not be that realistic, but here at the Healing Sanctuary, I feel like we can do a lot of those things.
Yeah. Even if you did one every few years, like, it doesn't have to be every year. And people just waiting for, I keep taking a drink. I have a scratchy throat.
Yeah. Well, you need to take care of that. But yeah, every year is not realistic, but it was fun to think about, because people were like, when are we going to do this again?
Yeah. They were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Life is what we make out of it, right? We can make anything, even as you're saying, the old saying of like lemonade out of lemons kind of thing, where, you were moving to Pittsburgh and could have felt differently about it, but chose to really look at this in the most positive way, which it has been a very positive experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think we need to know and trust when it is time to shift. If it ever happens, some people stay in the same space for, the same city their whole lives. That's great. There's no need to necessarily move. for me personally, it was just this calling I had. I Texas was calling to us for some reason, which we moved there without any jobs. We didn't know one single soul. We felt drawn to it. We had to go. And it ended up to be the most incredible 15 years of, I mean, of my life, truly. And now feeling called to Northern California where we don't know anybody. We bought the house before Dave got a job. We just knew, like, okay, he's going to get a job. I thank God that I work online and I can live anywhere. But we don't know what's going to happen here. We just trust. And so, maybe it'll be this or maybe it'll be that. But the point is to be in a flow and to listen to your intuition, because that is your guiding light. But it's not always easy to hear the intuition, to tap into it, because we are really busy in our heads and our egos are really strong and we have certain expectations and what we think should happen or not happen. And so when we have expectations, that's a really big cause for suffering, because often, more than not, our expectations are not met and then we get upset about it. But what if we can just surrender and say, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen. And I love the saying, this or something greater. This is what I would like, but maybe it's something even greater than this,
Yeah.
which I couldn't even imagine, right? I could have never, ever planned out what happened in Texas. I could have never looked and said, okay, this, and then I need this, and then I want this. I couldn't have made this up if I tried. I couldn't have planned it if I tried. How the retreat evolved and started, how even the yoga studio that I had before that was kind of given to me in a way, not literally, but it was this opportunity that landed on my lap,
Right.
which is what I wanted. And I didn't say no to it, even though I had really no idea what was going to happen. Right.
Right. Well, manifestation, which again, that'll be an episode coming up for sure. That'd be fun.
Mm. Yeah, it's a powerful gift that we all have. But yeah, we can go into that another time. But we are very powerful.
I wanted to tell you, this is funny. You know how you always say that Asha says, well, I thought it was a good idea at the time.
Oh, yes.
There is a very famous writer who wrote like many of the sitcoms from back in the day, like the most famous sitcoms. He just wrote a book, and the title it's about his experience in doing sitcoms, and the title is, well, I thought it was a bad idea at the time. And I was like, oh my God, this is so funny, because he was like, oh, this is going to be terrible. And then there was all these like really famous sitcoms and things that he wrote. But this book is brand new. I thought it was a bad idea at the time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I thought of it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, so Susie's referring to Nayaswami Asha, who is a very dear and important teacher in my life. And she's been on the spiritual path for over 50 years and teaches all over the world, literally travels all over the world just to talk about spirituality. I mean, she's like my guiding light in a way that is, I say to Dave, like, I just want to be like Asha. I want to be like Asha. Not that I want to be traveling all over the world and talking. I just want to have her consciousness, and I want to be as evolved as she is, and it's great to have that aspiration, somebody that you can look to and say, yeah, that's what I want.
Mhm.
Right. And she does say that very famously. And I love it. We all, instead of having regrets or feel guilty about something, right? Because we are not perfect beings and we do things sometimes that we think is a good idea. And then we look back and like, yeah, that didn't turn out so great. And instead of beating ourselves up over it, metaphorically, we actually can say, that seemed like a good idea at the time. It probably wasn't. And what can I learn from it? And move on. Like, don't hold on to these things, because it literally energetically weighs you down.
Yeah.
And does nothing positive for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, that's good stuff. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Well, I would say that couple things. This was fun, as I always say.
Yeah.
And we would love to hear from you guys. Love to hear. Drop us anything, a heart, message. I have gotten a few messages I actually need to share with you, a couple that we've just received, and I love it. And we both love you all so much. So go kiss the Blarney Stone, put the shamrock in your beer. Watch out for that little mischievous leprechaun. Have a great weekend.
Thank you
Like
for
to say,
listening.
Jenny.
Thank you for listening. And thank you, Susie, for those fun questions. That was fun. I love that we don't rehearse anything or even really, I'm like, what are we going to talk about like 5 minutes before we're going to get on? Because it's natural and organic. And I really appreciate that. And I love you so much. And I'm so honored to be with you all the time.
Yay. Love you too.
All is well.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Sister Sessions podcast. If you found inspiration in today's conversation, we'd love it if you shared the episode with your besties, family, or even your favorite neighbors. We'll be back next week with more to share, but until then, remember, meditation is the key to unlocking your inner peace. All is well, friends. See you soon.